Hello. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. As you probably know, this is my first video on this new account that I'm finally getting started as a means of putting my passion out there for all forms of media, so whether it be music, books, movies, you're likely to find it all here in the future. I have an Instagram and a letterbox so you can follow, and the link's in the description, as well as my blog if you're interested. So without further ado, welcome to Tristan's Media Corner. The story of my life can be easily chronicled with both film and physical media. When I was young, growing up at the end of the Blockbuster and VHS era, I quickly discovered a love and fascination with not just film, but the physical film. Holding it in my hands, popping it in, rewinding it, putting it back in the case, displaying it, pretty much the whole affair. Blockbuster was an integral part of my childhood. I distinctly remember my parents taking me and letting me pick out a whole stack of movies I'd bring to them, and they'd check them out for me, and then I'd finish them within a night and have to ask them to take me back the next day. I consider the inception of my fascination with horror to have started in said Blockbuster halls. The horror section in particular, I was never not allowed to go into, but it was more of an unspoken rule that I shouldn't. One day I decided I was brave enough to adventure into that hall, eager with anticipation, but having no clue what was awaiting me, and putting myself at risk of hyperbole, my life was never the same. There were what seemed like an endless amount of films on the shelves at the time. I distinctly remember an abundance of crappy-looking 2000s horror covers along the lines of Wrong Turn and Silent Hill, both of which still scared the shit out of me. But there were two VHS tapes in particular whose box art truly haunted my every thought. Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2 and Tommy Lee Wallace's 1990 It. The skull on the cover of Evil Dead 2 was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I mean, I'd obviously seen skulls before, but the way that the eyes were bulging out of this one, the way it was almost seducing me into going and picking it up and taking it home and exploring further what it had in store for me, what it would do. With Evil Dead 2 now being one of my favorite films, I now see the cover as almost quasi-comedic, but at the time it was terrifying. That being said, it was nothing compared to how Tim Curry made me feel on the cover for It. What really got me the most about that box art wasn't his beckoning smile or freakish glare, but his extended, bony, almost disintegrating fingers, peeking over the color blocking, fingernails long and sharp, almost hopping out of the cardboard, seemingly to make me one of his young victims. That cover art scared me for years until the early to mid 2010s when my family got our first Apple TV, my introduction to digitizing these films that I loved seeing in person so much. Funny enough, seeing that cover art on a digital screen elicited almost no response from me, something I found fascinating at the time and still do, because it didn't feel like anything. I didn't have to walk past the horror section to get to another one, eyes closed, almost running, to escape this box art that felt absolutely real, whereas on this digital screen, it almost felt like a manifestation of something. VHS felt special to me, but as I was growing up, the DVD era was truly coming in full swing. There are a number of discs that I have distinct memories of wearing out from my father's massive collection, one so big that they had to be housed in a binder instead of on a shelf due to the sheer amount that he had. There were two films in particular that stayed with me, and that obviously still do, and that would be Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man and Robert Rodriguez's masterpiece, The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. But the DVD discs of those two films were worn out so heavily that when I tried to play them the other day, digging them out of the binder, I realized that they were almost incapable of being played all the way through just from the sheer amount of love that they've had over the years. But what I remember just as much as these films themselves is taking them out of their case, inspecting the disc, putting it in the DVD player, taking in the menu, and relishing the fact that I truly owned something. I had it in my hands. I could take it to show and tell. I could lend it to somebody. I could trade it. I could do whatever I wanted with this with absolutely no limitations. Aside from the inexplicable, intangible feeling of the magic of holding a film in your hands, the digital film also poses numerous other limitations. Most of these are able to be supported statistically with a few exceptions, such as, it's pretty great having a bunch of bonus features on a disc as opposed to streaming, which has none, as well as weather and internet don't affect whether or not you can watch a film on a disc. The best and latest way to watch a film at home is going to be the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray. I've got one of the finer discs here. Viewing a film on a 4K Blu-ray is scientifically the best way to watch a film at home, But don't just take my word for it, because there is science behind this. We'll compare two different ways to watch a film: a 4K Blu-ray and a 4K stream, both resting at an increased 2160p, resulting in what is advertised as double the picture sharpness as a standard 1080p HD stream or Blu-ray. What is arguably most important to note is the bitrate of 4K streaming compared to 4K Blu-ray. 4K Blu-ray boasts a bitrate of anywhere between 92 and 144 megabytes a second, whereas Netflix streams 4K at a bitrate of 16 megabytes a second, nearly 6 times smaller than that of a 4K disc, and even smaller than the minimum 1080p Blu-ray bitrate of 20 megabytes a second. The higher the bitrate, the sharper the image. The disc one-ups don't stop there, though. Sound quality soars on a disc compared to streaming, and that can be due to a number of reasons. Your standard 4K disc can house Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, Dolby True HD, and DTS HD Master Audio, whereas streaming only features the likes of Dolby Digital Plus and occasionally Dolby Atmos. The primary reason, however, or at least my primary reason for championing physical media like I do, is actually quite simple. You don't own anything digitally. I first noticed this when I was very young and looking to watch one of my favorite features at the time, which was LEGO Hero Factory: Rise of the Rookies. I quickly discovered that this had completely disappeared from my iTunes library after months of me watching it, beginning to end countless times, and I spent a freakishly long time pointing fingers at everybody in my household, accusing them of deleting it. Except I was completely wrong, and I was pointing the finger at the wrong direction every time, because it should have been pointed at Apple. Since that day, numerous different films have disappeared from my iTunes library, including 8 of my favorite childhood films, the direct-to-video Marvel animated features. These included Doctor Strange, Hulk vs., The Invincible Iron Man. All of these nostalgic films that I loved so much, almost erased from the universe. These were all presumably pulled due to licensing reasons, but this demand that I don't know if they thought would exist, but absolutely does, has driven the Blu-rays of these films to skyrocketed price, which almost reaches $300 to $400 per collection. We spent money to deceptively own these films on our digital libraries, only for them to be yanked from them with almost no word of notice. This is because digital ownership is, quite frankly, a complete sham and does not exist. However, even if it's deceptively small and hidden, you can't say these companies didn't warn us. It's right there in the license for digital films and apps sold by Apple's iTunes Store, Google Play, Amazon Prime, or any other digital store you can think of. Google Play's terms explicitly state, and I quote, "In certain cases, for example, if Google loses the relevant rights, a service or content is discontinued, there are critical security issues, or there are breaches of applicable terms of the law, Google may remove from your device or cease providing you with access to certain content that you have purchased." It is that easy for these huge tech companies to rob you of what you thought you owned. It's also so important to keep in mind that these terms and conditions don't just apply to films, and in fact apply to any digital form of media that you think you could possibly own. In the current uncertainty of our political climate, artists are more frequently pulling their records off of streaming platforms. Most recently, My Bloody Valentine removed their classic record Loveless, though there was no announcement for this, which leads me to believe it could possibly be for licensing reasons. Though other artists, such as King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Zuzu, Massive Attack, have all removed their music from platforms in a brave protest. But it doesn't stop there. Do you read ebooks? Do you have a Kindle or an e-reader? Guess what? Your terms and conditions are the exact same as listed above. This has actually come to light recently through Amazon's decision to remove the ability to back up your purchased ebooks to your computer as a means of preservation, presumably only to further rob you blind. So where do we go from here? If you've been watching, the answer is quite simple. Buy what you love physically. If you love a book, if you love a record, if you love a movie, buy it so you can hold it in your hands so that no one can take it from you. Oftentimes, if you purchase a new film, it will even include a digital copy of this for you to slap onto wherever it is you house your digital films, essentially meaning that for virtually the same price as buying a film on iTunes or Google Play, you could purchase a version of the film that includes a physical copy as well as a digital one for your backups. So if you're thinking of starting a collection, don't overthink it. My advice to you as a longtime collector would be to only buy the films, music, and books that you truly love. Standard films that you love can most likely be easily found used on eBay or Mercari for cheap. Whatnot is also a great live auction app with tons of physical media sellers, and flea markets, thrift stores, estate sales, OfferUp, garage sales, and Facebook Marketplace are also great resources for everything that you could possibly want. For your boutique film releases, which, if you're unfamiliar with, are high-quality films restored by certain companies such as Criterion, Arrow, and Severin, and released with a plethora of new special features and inclusions, there are a few options. You can buy directly from their websites, though it's important to note that these will often be full price, which is around $35 to $40 for a standard release, but it's really not that bad when you consider the amount of work that are being put into these films. Some sites like Arrow have very frequent deals, whereas places like Criterion do a sale maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I also highly recommend supporting small physical media businesses such as Grindhouse, Orbit DVD, and Diabolic DVD, all of which I'll link below if you're interested, but they won't always have everything that you're looking for in stock. This is when eBay again becomes your best friend. I try to avoid shopping at Amazon for things that can be bought from these local sellers, but unfortunately, if you need something fast, Amazon is ridiculously convenient. So think about the movies and the books and the records that you love. Write them down and then go from there. My advice to you would be not to buy everything at once. Take your time, bring some friends, go hunting. The thrill is in the search with physical copies of things. There's peace of mind and innate happiness in knowing that you truly own something, that no matter what happens, you still have these books, these movies, these records that you love dearly, that you wouldn't want to live without. Enjoy yourself, enjoy analog, enjoy your purchases, enjoy making new friends throughout the way, and welcome to the physical media community.